If you have ever hit that point where everything just feels too much, you're not alone. Today we're talking about what to do when life as a single mum feels stuck, heavy, or just plain exhausting. By listening, you'll learn how to spot early red flags of emotional overload and what they're actually signaling. Simple grounding tools you can use anywhere, a kinder way to handle mum guilt, and finally, small heart-lifting ways to reconnect with yourself again. Together, we are diving into how to reset and reflect when you're running on empty. I'm Elle, and if you've been following Beanstalk for a while, you might notice things sound a little bit different this month. That's because alongside Beanstalk, I also run the Single Mama Way, a counselling and emotional well-being space created especially for single mums. And in a fun little role reversal, our guest today is actually me, being interviewed by our very own social media extraordinaire, Maggie. So settle in. This is an honest, hopeful conversation between two mamas with simple tools to help you breathe a little easier and start feeling like yourself again.
Alrighty, well, let's dive right in. So, Elle, you are not just a counsellor, you're a single mum too. What do you think most mums are feeling when they finally admit I can't keep doing it like this?
You know, I've been reflecting on that for a little while to give you the best answer, as it is varied. But predominantly, most mums that present to me are in that exhaustion and shame and relief all at once. You know, they've been holding it together for so long, this mad circus of events that's sort of unfolding around them. And then when they finally take that step to go and see someone just to spill everything out, it's such relief for them as well. Because it can feel so alienating when they come to see me and I validate them and normalize what's going on in their world. That is such relief for them as well. So yeah, a lot of the mums when they come to me are just basically on that edge of exhaustion and shame.
Yeah, and I guess they just need someone to be in their corner and be validating them that, and it's great that you can offer them that.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is why I've sort of set into this journey, and I'm sure we'll probably cover that later on, but I've when I became single, there was just so very little information out there. I mean, it's only 10 years ago now, but there seems to be of late an explosion of support for mums, and this is amazing. It's wonderful.
Mm,
Back then, though, there wasn't as much, and yeah, just to have someone like another single mum that gets it, sit
yeah,
there and listen without judgment and just guide me, that would have been
yeah.
amazing.
Well, yeah. Single motherhood, it's just such an isolating experience, and it's one of those things you don't understand it unless you've walked that path. So it's great that you can offer that support to them.
Thank you. You know, I did see part of my journey was to see counselors and psychologists and psychologists or psychiatrists, psychologists, not the crazy one, although I am pretty mad at times. No, just it was to see a counselor, and I
Mm,
saw a male counselor and I saw a female counselor, and well, they were helpful, but again, there was none of that true understanding
mm,
of the decision fatigue, the fact that I was now responsible for the whole house and the child and trying to hold my emotional
mm.
space together and appear that everything's okay, because at that point she was only 3. So
Yeah,
I believe in allowing your child to see your faults and see you falter, but at 3 she wouldn't have been able to grasp what's
yeah,
going on, so I had to put on a brave face, and to have had a counselor that kind of been through it would have been
yeah.
even better. Not that the ones that I had weren't good, they definitely
No, but
helped.
it makes a point of
Any
difference.
counselor would help.
Yeah,
But yeah, just that experience certainly, I think, goes a long way. Once you live through something, it's easier to guide someone through it.
yeah. It's a very unique experience. So when was that point that you realized something had that change? What did that moment look like for you?
Gosh, there are various points where I knew something had to change, but my biggest one, and this is quite raw, and I guess I'm going to be quite vulnerable here. You know, things got so bad to the point where I really wasn't coping. I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of overwhelm. I felt like I was absolutely failing as a mother. I was short tempered because of trying to keep everything together. So, emotionally, I was walk a tightrope. And then whenever my daughter did something, as kids do, I would lose it and then berate myself over it. And it was a never ending. It just kept growing and growing and growing. And I remember lying next to her in bed, waiting for her to fall asleep. And I think she was about 4.5, something like that. And I went, she'd be better off without me. It got to
Mm.
that point where I was depressed. I wouldn't admit that to myself because I had to keep everything together. But that was the thought that went through my head, is that she would be better off if I just wasn't here, because her life would be much easier. And that night I had a dream, and this is going to sound really weird and far out there woo woo, but I had a dream of her standing on a dock and I was being pulled away on a boat, and she was just reaching out to me and she was just crying out for a mum. Now, I woke up with that, from that, in extreme fright and also extremely emotionally disturbed, that I would actually, and I think this realization came to me, that by leaving, her being without me, in whatever aspect that took, me being absent, would hurt her so much more than me trying to keep everything together. And it was kind of like my wake up call, going, well, I am the only mother she has, and I have to get my shit together. I have to get some support to push me through this. What I'm doing currently is not working.
Yeah.
So I need to do something that I haven't done before and be the mother that she deserves to have. And, that was my catalyst. It really had to get that bad. And I truly hope that, I know that other mums get to that point too, but I wish that we wouldn't wait that long. I wish myself that I didn't wait to that stage. And opening up and reaching out to people after that, like after I've
Mm.
realized this, what I'm doing currently, keeping it all bottled up and doing it all myself and keeping everything afloat and being this emotionally tense individual is not helping anybody. And this is not the way to go. I went, well, what's the alternate? What's the opposite?
Mm.
It's that is to actually let people in and let people see that I'm not coping and let people help. And that was very foreign to me, and the beginning of a very interesting growth cycle and a journey that's brought me to here.
That
That's
transition
how it all
into
started.
Yeah, no, I get that, because that transition into single motherhood, it's such a rude awakening, and as you
Mm.
said, you are juggling all these things. You're trying to heal yourself at the same time and emotionally support yourself and regulate, but you've also got this little human who needs you, and they don't understand what's happening because you don't understand what's happening, let alone trying to explain it to a young child. So I can see and I can understand why you get stuck in this cycle of just surviving and trying to cope,
Mm.
and sometimes you don't see when that burnout point comes.
No.
So, when single mums are in that survival mode and in that transition period, why do you think it's so hard for single mums to pause and realize that you are getting to that point where you're running on empty and getting to that stage?
I think this is very much related to the fact that when we step into a relationship, and even before a relationship, we're individuals. We're independent individuals who run our life, and we're no longer reliant on our parents or anyone to guide us. We do shit on our own. And then in a relationship, yes, we share that with our partner. Then we're still sort of self-sufficient and independent. And then the relationship falls apart, and we still try to do that as a self-sufficient, independent person without admitting that we need that help, because we're not children anymore. We've stopped receiving that guidance. So as part of being an adult, you deal with the blows that life gives you. You've been given a set of tools as you were growing up, and now it's your bed, you made it, you lie in it, pretty much. And there's this conditioning that you must keep going. If you're a good mum, you'll know what to do for your child. If you're a good adult female, you'll know how to carry yourself and how to, like I said, you got yourself in this, you get yourself out of it. It's an expectation, societal expectation, potentially, or potentially it's just something that our generation or my generation got brought up with, is that asking for help is a sign of weakness, is you're not coping, so why not? What's wrong with you? And that, I think, is the main block of many women and mothers. But then you also have this nervous system being stuck in a chronic stress loop where your body's thinking danger equals stopping. So if I stop and ask for help, someone will find out that I'm not coping again, or something else is this is going to come back and bite me on the bum. And I'm going to be seen as weak. Potentially, people might think I can't look after my baby. So there's this perception and there's biological system failure, I suppose, that stops you from reaching out and asking for help, rather
Mm.
than reframing things and thinking rest isn't weakness, it's restoration, and you need that support of others to be able to achieve things. We're not meant to be individual. Well, we're meant to be individual, but we live in a society. We're meant to rely on each other. We're meant to
Mm.
be in groups and amongst friends and others that help us. And getting that in our heads, I think, is a really difficult step. That there's those blockages in place that stop us from getting across onto that other side.
Yeah. So with your scenario, your wake up call was quite a large and non-subtle one. So for the single mums out there who are listening, what are some early emotional signs, even the subtle ones, that can tell her that her nervous system might need rest before she's forced to stop?
Anything that relates to emotional disruptions. So things like forgetfulness, irritability, zoning out. Your mind is on so many things and you're trying to deal with so many things. You can't keep tab of everything. So you're forgetting things all the time. You feel like something small happens and it's suddenly huge. So your child losing something
Mm.
potentially not significant can become this be an end all disaster, end of the world as we know it situation, because you're not able. You're overwhelmed. You're in that flight, fight,
And
freeze.
freeze.
I always have to think 3 times before I say it. You're in that constant state of stress and overwhelm. And as a result of that, those sort of things like forgetfulness, irritability, things like your body, your tight chest and your jaws clenching and waking up at 3 a.m. going, I don't know why I'm up, but something's bothering me. Like I had to have full on dental work done because
Mm.
of the amount of clenching I was doing. I
Oh,
reckon
wow.
my jaw, like my whole face has changed shape from the workout that I put
Yeah.
my head through.
Holding all the tension there.
It's still there, like it's not as
Mhm.
bad as it was, but I reckon I could crack a walnut on those black molars. Like it's unbelievable how much strength you can have in those jaw muscles from just constant clenching. And then of course you've got your teeth grinding and whatever else at nighttime too. Then you got emotional numbness as well. That can be a red flag too. It becomes almost like a self-protection mechanism where you go, well, I'm not going to feel anything at all. I'm not going to get attached to anything at all. I'm not going to make anything mean or matter because that's just easier. That
Mm.
way it's like putting a blanket between reality and yourself. So, I think all those emotional, physical and mental things are really little signs, little red flags that something's not quite adding up. It's not that you're developing early onset dementia. It's not that you are silly or stupid, God forbid, or that, you've diminished in any way as a woman.
Mm.
It's that the amount of stress that you're under that really is affecting you, how you function. And, doing little check-ins like noticing how you talk to yourself and hold yourself and like, do I clench my teeth? Do I
Yeah.
sit there and clench my hands? Those little things, catching yourself early can really bring that stress and those emotional signs to light so that you know that, hang on, I'm going to reach out to someone before it gets to the stage where it's a big drama.
Yeah. No, and so with that, once a mum has done those emotional check-ins and they have flagged that, hey, this is getting a lot, I'm getting overwhelmed, what else can they do in that moment to steady themselves?
I like these. You've just been putting them in the single mum vine, little Tuesday moments, and they are so valuable. And most people, and I scoffed at them to start with, the little tools, because I'm like, that's not going to do anything. But simple little grounding practices like going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the senses, The just standing and smelling the air, feeling the ground under your feet, looking what you can see, connecting yourself to the environment, to the nature around you, to the house around you. If you have animals, sitting down and patting them, stroking an animal, taking that, just drop what you're doing, sit down, call your over and stroke it. Take a couple of deep breaths, put a heart on your hand, or a hand on your heart rather, and take a couple of deep breaths, center yourself, ground yourself back into the moment. A really good friend of mine gave me a crazy thing when you feel like your heart is really racing and you're really worked up and you feel that anxiety building and you're really overwhelmed and you're going to explode any minute. She goes, open the door, run as fast as you can to your letterbox and back. Again, sounds crazy, but there's actual theory and research behind that madness, because it allows your body to expel that adrenaline, to that humongous amount of energy you are bound in. And that outlet just physically allows you to dump. Hormonally, it shoots a bit of endorphins there as well. So you've just dumped all this negative energy and got a bit of a kick of happiness. It's like a reset, a crazy reset. Your neighbors will probably think you're bonkers, but who cares? This is your world, your reality, your life with your child. And I'm sure if your neighbor is a mum, I'm sure she'll probably understand and probably be grateful for a tip if she ever asks you, like, why were you doing that?
No, that's a really, really good circuit breaker and way to reset ourselves. So obviously being calm is not about controlling your life. It's about learning to regulate ourselves. So with that, could you share a real life example of what that looks like, maybe from your own week?
Staying calm is not about controlling your life. You can't. Life will happen. Life with kids will happen. And kids are unreliable, or they are reliable not to be reliable. They will throw things at you. They will push those buttons. But even yesterday, I was with my daughter at a doctor's appointment and she was very patient. She waited for almost an hour in the waiting room, but an hour is a lot for a kid to take. And so it got to the stage where she started to get a bit short with me and short with the doctor. And it was like, I had enough. I want to go. And the attitude, because she's now 11. So the added sass is starting to fly. And it's a split moment decision where you almost have this sliding door moment. And for those who are my age will know the movie and the reference to it. You have this split moment decision of catching yourself and pausing for 3 breaths before you respond. I could have lost it at her, escorted her out of that room and sat her out in the waiting room and then gone back to the appointment. That could have worked, but it really wouldn't have been conducive for me, healthy for her, and it probably would have been quite embarrassing in front of the GP to witness an outburst like that. So taking the 3 breaths basically allowed me to gain control of myself, and rather than reacting, I was able to then calmly explain to her, acknowledge, first of all, that she had been very patient and that she had waited for so long and that I really appreciate it. And if I didn't have to have her with me, I wouldn't. But I had no other options today. That's the way it's worked out. Then approach her to give me, 10, 15 more minutes with the doc, because that's usually how long the appointments last. And then we could go and do something fun together afterwards to make up for all of this. Result was completely different. She settled. There was no need for a tug of war to get her out of that appointment room. She felt acknowledged. I felt respected. And I'm sure the GP would have felt quite respected as well for us not throwing a tantrum in his room. I couldn't have stopped or preempted how she would behave. Sometimes she's fine to sit there for an hour or two. Sometimes she's not. The only control I had at that point in time was to control how I responded to the event. And the only thing that gave me an opportunity to do that was just to stop and take stock. It doesn't have to be forever, because I did feel myself climbing. My emotions were starting to come up. I was getting triggered and irritated, and it would have been just as easy just to go. But as I felt those emotions, as I felt that tightness, as I felt everything else, listened to those cues, I took a couple of deep breaths and just went, right, okay, that was enough for me to steer the conversation and the situation in a different direction. taking that moment, catching yourself, taking that moment, labeling the situation. You can stop and say, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. And you know what? I could have actually said that out loud in the office as well, and that would have been fine. This is a man that has his own children. I'm sure
Mm.
he has witnessed a meltdown or two of his own. I think we are so conscious of other people's judging us, and we're so worried about what would they think when a lot of them have gone through the same stuff, calling things for what they are. Like, my gosh, I'm really stressed. I'm really overwhelmed. I can see that you're really stressed and overwhelmed too. Just puts things out in the open and then
Yeah.
straight away puts a different playing field for everyone to respond back to that. So that ends up being in a lot calmer everyday life, household,
Mm.
GP excursions, what have you, whatever that
Yeah.
might be.
Yeah, to that sliding door moment, I know every mum has been through that, and it's such a hard call to make sometimes to take that pause. And obviously if you do lose it, we've got to give ourselves grace that we're human too, and at some point we just hit our limit and we just can't help ourselves. But for those who want to attempt that slowing down and picking the other option that you did, what tips could you give to a mum who want to step away from that pressure and learn to slow down in those moments?
First of all, I want to acknowledge, thank you for noting that if you do lose your shit, it is okay to.
We've all been
Because
there.
you're a human being. That's all it means is that, we, in all my studies, in all that I do and the people that I counsel, and I still lose my shit. I'm not one of those mums that's cool as a cucumber 24/7. That's just like, oh, yeah, my hat off to those mums. It's fine. If you're not, that's fine. It's like dieting or having those cheat days on your diets. Doesn't mean you failed. It just means you had a little cheat day. Forgive
Yeah.
yourself and move on. Okay. Or even better still, depending on the age of your child, sit down with them afterwards and say,
Yeah.
hey, mum just lost her poo, didn't she? And discuss it, pull it
Yeah.
apart. Let them know that that is normal. You don't have to be perfect every single time. You can even say what you were going for, what you hoped you wanted
Mm,
to occur and what occurred and why. And then
mm,
your failure, which it isn't,
mm,
just, that not being able to control yourself or the situation,
mm.
then becomes an educational tool for your kid. So it becomes something positive out of a negative
Yeah.
situation. So that, first of all, I'm really glad that you brought that up because it's amazing. Going back to your question about how do you unhook from the pressure of slowing down and how do you deal with guilt. I think first and foremost, let's acknowledge that there's two different types of guilt. So you have a guilt where you know you've done something wrong. You've taken something from someone, you've called someone something, you know that behavior was not appropriate. And that guilt guides you in the direction of an apology, of a correctional situation. It is a positive type of guilt that allows you to function within the structures of our society. And that is healthy. That's fine. But when we place guilt on ourselves, like in the scenario potential that we just talked about, that I've stuffed up, I'm a failure, I didn't do this the absolutely perfect way, that is it's a disruptive way to feel guilt, but it also is a very strong signal that we care. It's not proof that we're wrong. It's just proof that we actually care so much about being a particular way, being that good mother, for example, to your child, being resourceful, getting everything done, staying calm, that when we don't achieve that massive milestone that we've set for ourselves, we berate ourselves and we turn that as guilt on ourselves and we turn it into the shoulds and coulds and all the rest that pressure that we place. And I find if we turn that around, it's a simple restructuring, reframing exercise where if you say, I should have done this and that, turn it into, well, yes, potentially, but I chose to do this. And why did I choose to do this? I chose to do this because it's beneficial for us this way and that way. Or if we take it to I don't have a perfect lunchbox. All the other kids in the class bring beautiful handmade sushi rolls to school and my daughter has packet lunch and I
Mm,
should be cooking her homemade meals and I should blah, blah. turning that into, but I choose to be present for her
Mm,
in the after school hours by playing. Yes, my lunches don't stack up to everybody else's, but I choose to spend that time interacting with her and building a relationship. Potentially also can say that I should be doing these beautiful cooked lunches to, well, I don't quite know how to do them yet. I actually don't know how to do that. So then therefore, what can I do to learn it, to be
mm,
able to provide my child with that? So it's basically taking that negative thought of what you think you should be and reframing it into a learning opportunity or a choice opportunity and working from that, not to further push yourself down, but to build yourself up. If you learn to restructure, and again, it ties it back, if you learn to catch yourself, eventually, I mean, initially it will be hard to catch yourself. But it's like with anything that you do, the more you practice it, the more you catch it, and every time you go to berate yourself, you catch yourself and you think about, how would I speak to a friend? Would I tell my friend
mm,
this? Would I speak to my friend like this? If the answer is no, come back to going, okay, well, how would I speak to my friend? What would I say to them? How would I rephrase it for them to receive it well? That not only becomes second nature to you, but again, it becomes an education for your child, because your child is able then to learn sort of reassurance and self-care by
mm.
watching how you treat yourself as well.
No, I love that because, as you said, the kids are watching. And by, your original mention of apologizing to them if you have lost your nanas, it's so good for the kids to see that we do all make mistakes and it's natural. It doesn't matter how young or old you are. It's about how you handle it afterwards and how you
Mm.
repair that relationship afterwards. I love that. And I love the tips of how to get over that guilt because I know that eats away at so many of us. So, thank you.
It sure does. I mean, that guilt was what was driving me away, thinking that I was no good mum for my child. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Mm,
There's no one better for you, for your child than you.
no, that's a great reminder. So, when you're in that deep overwhelm, it's very easy for you to forget who you are outside of motherhood. So, what are some small moments of reflection that we can use to reconnect with ourselves again?
What we could do is look at, take that reflection inwards and think about who we are. Like you can take a piece of paper and write down or just name it out loud 3 words that describe who you are. And who are you when you're most alive? What brings that happiness to you? We lose ourselves in this role. In whatever role we play, we tend to become that person. And I'm sure many single mums will attest to the fact that when the dust finally settles and they find themselves just them and they've got a handle on most things, and now it's like, well, I've got 5 minutes here for myself or a half an hour here for myself, if we're blessed enough to have those. It turns you to your own self-reflection and you go, well,
Mm,
what do I enjoy doing? Who am I outside of this mum, outside of the ex-wife, outside of these different labels that we attach to ourselves? I guess I love journaling. I've always loved journaling, and now I'm journaling sort of mentioned everywhere, but just sitting down and working through and putting on something you would have listened to as a teenager,
mm,
or doing your full makeup or something that kind of just takes you away from your everyday life. Calling a friend that really gets you, and asking, hey, I'm feeling a bit lost. Who am I? Can you tell me who I am? Like from your perception, just to get your, not someone that doesn't know you well or that doesn't wish you well. You don't go there. We don't ask. But if your best friend turning around and getting all that and jotting it on paper and working through it, joy, seeing what makes you happy. It's not overly indulgent. It's what fuels our emotional well-being. So yeah, just putting on music that you've had from ages ago that you completely don't relate to now, because that kind of gives you that, it knocks you out of the everyday moment,
yeah.
and doing something that you don't normally do and just trying on different things, going back to potentially some things that you did enjoy. Like if you loved mountain biking in the past, try it. You might reconnect with that, or you might find that you absolutely hate it now. but then
Mm.
that might lead you to something else. Or if you've been sitting there on the fence about a painting class or a walking group or something, just do it. Like pull that stop out and just go try it. I think that's some of the tools that you can potentially use to get yourself out of that mold. Work through those to see how you connect and trying to build a picture of yourself as you are at that point in time, and then grow from that.
No, I love that you've given such a variety of options there, from like just mini moments where you're journaling, which don't take a lot of time or a lot of effort, to bigger things like mountain biking. And also, like, obviously, there are some single moms who have those kid free moments and those who don't. But one thing that I learned on my journey was to involve the kids.
Mm.
It You don't have to do it alone.
Yes,
And I found roping my kids and getting them to enjoy the things that I like, we all get to enjoy it at the same time. My cup gets filled, cup gets filled, they get mum time. They're thinking I'm the best mum ever because I've done this for them. And I'm like, I'm doing this for me. This is amazing. So there's so many options.
absolutely. And again, you're introducing them to different things too. They might enjoy it too. A previous interview that we did with Sarah at Keep Going Counselling, she was talking about taking out some time in the evening with your child to go out and sit and watch stars. That is perfect example of what you're saying. You're giving yourself a moment to pause, to reflect, to breathe. And the kid is out there with you looking at the stars after dark. How cool is that? It's just such an awesome practice to connect the two of you, to fill your own cup, like you're saying, and to give them a little tool as well. But I mean, that was just sitting outside. We can extend that to any activity, whether it's
Exactly.
mountain biking or running or journaling or whatever it may be. Yeah, bring the kids in. Absolutely. It doesn't have to be a standalone exercise. You can still learn yourself whilst being in the role of a mother. You can be you. You don't have to be two separate identities.
So, with that, obviously, you've mentioned journaling as one of those simple and quick ways to refill your cup as a mum. If a mum's listening right now and she's only got 10 minutes tonight, what's one thing she could do to help her body and mind feel just a little bit lighter?
There is one tool I like to give to my clients, and that is to sit and pause for 1 minute. Put a hand on your heart, or just you take a minute, calm yourself, steady yourself with 3 slow breaths, and then just ask, what do I need right now? What do I need? What do I need to be doing? What's the most important thing I should focus on? And then write down the one small thing you can do to fill that need. Ignore everything else, just focus on that one need. Maybe it's going to bed 15 minutes earlier because you're exhausted. Maybe it's just sending a friend a text and saying, help, I'm drowning. I was going to swear there. Or something raw, someone that gets it, and just reach out. Whatever it is, that need, just attend to it first and foremost. That's the first step of a real reset, because it's not about performance, it's about attunement. So filling that cup first, doing something that helps you feel human and normal, will allow you to attend to everything else down the track, and you will attend to those things with a lot more ease, I suppose is the word. It'll be a lot less stressful. You'll be a lot more together and a lot more focused on what you're doing once you just give in a bit to yourself. And one thing I'd like to mention here too, if you don't get to do everything on that list or on those things that you need to be doing, by the end of the day, again, not the end of the world. Do what you can. If that mount laundry is growing, so what? Let it sit there for another day. There's your mental health and your happiness and your internal stability and sanity so much more important.
No, I think it goes back to that whole idea of just learning to give ourselves grace and checking in with what we need and just grounding ourselves before we dive into the next thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we forget that. We forget that we need to allow ourselves, again, going back to that expectation that we have placed. It's okay. It is honestly okay if things fall apart sometimes.
No, that's fantastic. And I think as mums, we need to hear that sometimes coming from somebody else, just that permission to let go. So
Mm.
thank you. So, for the mums who can't afford therapy right now, what are a few ways to start healing and resetting on their own?
Yes. Well, the price always comes up, and the financial, and who can blame people really with everything that's going on around us. Money has always been an issue and a sticking point with single mums, especially going from a double income to a single or even straight onto just parenting single. So the government support, it really does sort of taper your ability to be able to fund things. And being mums, we always tend to put our children first. But there are some things that don't require money or very minimum output of money, which, as I've already mentioned earlier, the journaling thing, get a dollar, $2 notebook from Kmart, not endorsing Kmart here, just anywhere, get a, notebook and write, feel yourself spiraling, pull it out, write down. No one has to read it. You can burn it afterwards. But
Mm,
just throw those angry thoughts, those confused thoughts or overwhelmed, whatever's going in your head, the name calling, whatever, throw it out on a piece of paper and be done with it. It sounds very simple and it does work. Rather than mulling it over in your head 55 billion times, you throw it out and you go, right, I'll think about that later, and you move on. And it's
mm,
amazing how your brain goes, okay, and it just goes busy doing something else. It allows you to focus on the moment rather than start to dive into the past or get anxious about the future. You just kind of go, well, I've jotted down these angry thoughts. Now I'm going to do the dishes and I'm thinking about washing the plate or whatever.
yeah.
You focus on. So that costs very little or nothing at all. Breath work, sitting there, taking those 4 breaths, holding for 4, letting out for 4, holding for 4. That costs you nothing. Again, creates
Mm,
that pause to be able to reset what's going on and start anew. If you've got single mum friends or even not single mum friends, have someone send you a check in or,
mm,
initiate one by sending one to a friend when you're feeling frazzled. Not so that you can dump all your stuff on them, but that simple connection, of going, hey, how you going when you're not quite right is hard potentially to do, but it is so beneficial because then they'll get back to you with what's going on in their day. And even if you don't get a chance to unload what's going on in your head, you've just tapped into somebody else's day that is a good day or and that uplifts you. And if it's not a good day, then it directs your thinking onto their problems and then they can be comforting in a way. To know that you're not the only one struggling. And that's a human thing.
yeah.
We find support in each other. Many counselors, and myself included, create courses. I've recently created a reset and reflect emotional recovery course for mums. And that's fraction of what my big program costs or one-on-one counseling costs. And it's something that you can do in your own spare time. And the modules take like 5 minutes to do, which doesn't seem like they hold a lot of value, but they do. They allow you to work at it with reflection, with guidance, at moments in time that you can slot it in. So I think if you really are struggling, the concept of money, although quite valid, I think is irrelevant, if that makes sense. If I don't
Mm,
mean to be offending anyone by saying this, but it's no longer an excuse. Lack of money is not an excuse to keep suffering
mm,
and keep going down that spirally hole. Because if you truly want to dig yourself out of that, if you have gotten to that point, that fork in the road where you know something needs to be done and you're picking up these little red flags left, right, and
mm,
center, there are from zero to thousands of dollars that you can
yeah.
invest, depending where you are on that scale. And I suppose if you go from zero, that journaling, that might take you up a couple of notches out of that state where
Mm,
it opens up your realm of possibility and ability to get funding from somewhere else to then take you up to the next course that you can do online or
mhm.
see a counselor where you can pay a bit more, etc. And that level of support and the ability to improve and grow becomes more substantial. And
You
bonus
given
kids benefit. I always come back to the point that at the end of the day, even if you're one of those mums that's like, well, my kid comes first, you are putting them first by doing
yeah.
work on yourself.
100%, because by doing so, we become better people, not
Absolutely.
only as an example for them, but we can parent better when we don't feel depleted and
Mhm.
we know who we are. When you don't know those things, anything can overwhelm you. So I love
Absolutely.
that you can start from small things all the way up to the big things and depending on where you are in your journey. So it's great.
I don't think that, like I said, I don't think lack of funding is an excuse. Or even
No.
these days, lack of time,
Mm,
especially as I mentioned, and not just for myself with the course that you can do whenever, but even, reaching out in a community. And
mm.
you can do that.
Well, it takes 30 seconds to send a text message, right? It takes 30 seconds to put a post up in a Facebook group where you can have
Yes.
like-minded people jump in and back
Yes.
you. So
Yes.
it time isn't a thing. There are free options out there. There are so many different ways that you can access this sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
So there are no excuses. We just need to learn to prioritize ourselves.
100%. 100%. And it's amazing how many little pockets of time you will find for yourself once you start. Those
Mm.
school drop offs, the waiting in a cash register, whatever. There are moments, there are a multitude of moments.
So you and I know how powerful it is to feel seen. For the mums who feel completely alone right now, what small act of reaching out could start to rebuild that sense of connection?
Touched upon that just a minute ago when you were talking about reaching out to a Facebook community. And again, partial here because we do have the amazing Beanstalk Mums, the Single Mum Vine. But obviously, it doesn't have to be our group. There are a multitude, although ours is best. There's a plethora. There's a plethora of groups out there, and it's just if you do not feel brave enough to post a post of your own, comment on somebody's, send a text message thinking of you to another friend or another mum, or little small gestures, social micro moments, they all release oxytocin. They really
Mm,
help to give you that spark and that kick in your step, that make you feel a little bit more together. We are fiercely independent women, most of us, but we are also members of a society. And there's been multitude of studies done to say that we live healthier and longer when we are part of a group. And sometimes I find with a lot of the mums I talk to, it's almost like they get everything. Well, initially they're very much caught up in trying to get the house running normal and getting their handle on everything. But then the dust settles and then they're still there like waiting. When's someone going to come on the door and knock and say hi?
mm,
You're in that sort of constant coping and managing that you forget that you can actually be the one that goes and knocks on someone's door and says hi.
mm,
And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture affair. Even getting out of the car, if it's permitted, at that school run and saying to your child's friend's mum, "Hi,
mm,
introduce yourself." Or if you have introduced yourself, "How's your day been?" It doesn't have to be a full on conversation about the state of the world today and the politics and God, Trump or whatever. It just a simple hi, how's your
yeah.
day? And it's unbelievable how much other mums may be in the same situation as you. And as soon as you say those magic words, hi, how are you?
Mm,
Allows floodgates to open because then it allows them to connect with you. And before you know it, you've created this beautiful relationship that potentially you may have never had the opportunity to have. So definitely encourage that reciprocal vulnerability, sharing tiny truths with friends, connecting with others on a realistic platform, whether it's virtually or whether it's in person. And hi, how you doing? That reaching out is that small act of reaching out is the way to rebuild that connection.
yeah, it's all about baby steps. I know when I first joined the Vine, I was a serial stalker of all the posts there. I didn't post for at least a year, but it was just good to see the other mums talking about their experience. And there's so many times where I was like, yes, that's me. And then you read all the comments and you're like, okay, I'm not alone.
Mm.
This is now not feeling so isolating because, okay, she's been through this and this was her solution. And you can take so much away from it without having to actively participate. So whether you want to put yourself out there or you want to just, just watch along, there are so
Mhm.
many options that you can do that. And like you said, if you are ready to take that next step, the village doesn't know that you need help unless you put yourself out there. So pushing yourself out of that comfort zone and just making that first connection and that first attempt can start the ball rolling in so many different ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've said it better than I did.
Okay, so if a mum's listening on the school run and she might be feeling a bit fragile or numb, what hope would you want her to carry into the rest of her day?
If a mum's listening to this and she's feeling a bit fragile, I suppose I would say that hope doesn't mean happy. It means that this moment won't last forever. And just because you are in that situation now, again, doesn't mean this will go on forever. I love the phrase, this too shall pass, being used in both happy and sad moments because it brings such reality to our world. We are constantly changing and we're constantly evolving. And just, it is so grounding to realize that that struggle that you're in right now will not continue. Yes, it may be damn hard now. It is there to teach you lessons, to teach you a way forward, to show you how to grow, but it's not something to punish you. And it's not something that you'll have to endure till the end of days, which I think initially in the early stages of separating, that's how it feels for many mums. It's this world has ended and then this world will be ended forever and it's never going to get better. But it is. You are doing enough as you are. Go step by step and show yourself kindness. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Allow yourself to not be perfect. Allow yourself to reach out for help. Allow yourself to put yourself first. And know that seeking out help is not weakness. And even the strongest things need rest. Trees rest in winter and then grow once comes spring. So if nature allows itself those moments, let yourself too, because I mean, you're part of that nature cycle as well.
That's a fantastic takeaway for our listeners. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing all those amazing pieces of wisdom. I'm sure there'll be plenty of mums walking away feeling like they can take on the world now. So
Thanks, Maggie. I hope so. And I look forward to jumping back into the interviewer seat next month. Much easier.
yeah,
Jesus, that was hard.
we're just a bunch of mums here recording. We're not that professional at it.
Professional? What?
Oh my goodness.
Definitely
Cool
not
beans.
professional.
Nah,
I'm
big
just
brains
basically,
forever. So if that
yeah,
helps,
okay. Well, that's what it
take
is.
that.
I will go on a tangent and then I forget what I was talking about and I try to bring myself back in, but then I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then I end up, that's how I probably answered half your questions.
Yeah, that's why I was like, well, we can skip that one.
Sounds good. I'll click
Nice.
stop.